I'm getting to be a little worried about the state of the game industry lately. It's not looking like it's in a very healthy state, and I think gamers everywhere can feel it. People are always asking, where are the games? Why are they so expensive now? Today I'm going to lay out 7 reasons that I think that sense of unease might unfortunately be warranted. But we'll follow up with a few reasons that maybe things are looking brighter than you think. So let's go ahead and jump into it. What exactly is wrong with the gaming industry these days? Something's off. First on the list, and I think this is the biggest problem, everything's too expensive now. Games and consoles keep going up in price. The top-end Xbox is now $800. What? And the Series S, which was the cheapest of the consoles this generation, has already floated up all the way to almost $400. And now, on top of that, Microsoft just announced that they're going to be raising the price of Game Pass from $20 to $30. That is for the Ultimate Edition, but it's the one that everybody wants because it's got the day one games and everything. Everything on Xbox is going up. Sony just went up. The Switch 2 came out at $450, way more than I think anybody was expecting. I did, but a lot of people were not. The Switch 2's controllers cost between $90 and $100, depending on which model we're talking about, for just the controllers. You used to be able to buy an entire game console with a controller included for $100, sometimes with a free game included also. So yeah, it's a bit absurd compared to where we were 30 years ago. Even inflation and all that stuff still seems kind of crazy, right? Now, of course, here in the US, we've got the whole tariff situation making it worse. But these prices, they're not going to go down if the tariffs go away. These are probably going to stay permanent prices, unfortunately. And this isn't just a console problem. PC is crazy expensive right now, too, especially in the GPUs. They rarely sell for their MSRP value. Even used models from a year or two ago, a generation or two back, are selling for the price that the new models should be selling for, maybe more. It's kind of insane. But my point here is that whether we're talking game consoles, PCs, handhelds, whatever, dedicated game hardware is too expensive right now. And the real problem from that is that it holds back the industry from growing. Core gamers, people that are already into gaming, they're willing to pay that much. But people that aren't already into gaming, that's a hefty price usually to jump into this whole environment. As well, their phone just lets them on effectively for free since they already own it, even though we all know it's not free. And going back to the games themselves, it used to be standard price about $50 in the late 90s. Then we bumped up to $60, I think around PS2, PS3. And then we hit $70 around PS4. And now we're going up to $80. Like, it just keeps going up and up and up. And it seems weird to me because I always envisioned that the future of gaming would be that prices would go down as they expanded to a larger audience. You know, even though movies can cost just as much as these games, they don't cost you $80 for a Blu-ray. But that's because a lot more people are interested in movies than there are dedicated gaming. And this doesn't even include the subscriptions we pay for online services and things too on the console side. We're talking about hundreds and hundreds of dollars to get into gaming. Just to play one game, you've got to spend so much money these days that it's crazy. But okay, I think I've gone on enough about price issues. Let's move on to issue number 2. Oh, wait. Before we jump into issue number 2, please like and subscribe. If you enjoy this video, if you'd like to see more from me, well, that's how YouTube works. Alright. This next reason is just simply that AAA is failing badly. It's been a few months now, so we don't think about it as much, but Concord failed earlier this year. That game cost hundreds of millions of dollars, and it was gone in 2 weeks. That's not something that anybody, even the most valuable company out there, can keep doing over and over again and stick around. But that's also the problem. Budgets are just way too big for games these days. Many times going over $100 million because you need hundreds of people to make these games. I think Mortal Kombat now has like 3, maybe 400 people in their credits list. It's kind of insane that you've got 300 people for over 5 years to make one game. That's a lot of time and effort and a lot of money. And part of why everything's so expensive on our end, too. The issue is similar to what we see in the movie industry, chasing blockbusters. Everything's got to be the biggest, most flashy spectacle, and we need more AA gaming. We need more modest budgets. Not like shoestring budgets, but not in the hundreds of millions either. Some kind of reasonable middle ground has to be found. And we've already been seeing the biggest games this year come from AA and indie studios like Expedition 33 and Silksong. When I'm talking about the gaming industry, I'm talking about it as a whole, but right now we're focusing on AAA, and they are not going to be around much longer if they can't figure out something different, because the smaller studios are going to eat their lunch. And maybe that's not so bad if some of these companies, don't stick around. But unfortunately, they've got a lot of classic gaming, or legacy of IPs and things, characters and franchises that are tied to them. So we do want those to continue on, don't we? Of course we want new games, new franchises, new characters, but at the same time, we still want our Mario and our Sonic and Street Fighter and all these games that we've become staples of just always being there across the entirety, or the vast majority of gaming history. But back to 2025, when we look at the AAA games that came out this year, it's feeling pretty sparse. There was some good stuff, but not a lot. Most of the excitement came from the AA and indie game studios. And when we're talking about legacy, I think it's a really good thing to have remakes and remasters a normal part of gaming. I think we need to have these classic games in new formats that are going to be accessible to newer generations, so they don't just die with our memories when we're gone. These games are important, and we need to keep them updated because they're software. It's not like movies, although even those go through restorations. However, that's all we're getting, it seems like, these days. We should be getting remakes and remasters. Those are good. But to only get those, or for half the games or more that are coming out to be in that category, that's unacceptable. That is just not okay, and all of you watching this know this, so if there's any executive types, I guess I'm talking to you here. But yeah, it's just too much. Too many remakes and remasters, and then if it's not that, it's sequels. I'm just saying, we want to keep these franchises and things around, but we don't need a new one every year. I like the way that Nintendo does it now. They give us new game and a franchise about once a generation, which equates to every, 7, 8, maybe 10 years at some point. But that makes it so that they're special when the new ones come out. These things like Call of Duty, where they've got a new one every single year, or Madden and all these other games, like, those games make money. They're not going to stop doing that. But if you're not already milking the cash cow there, then don't start, I guess is my advice to developers. But yeah, these big studios seem to get kind of trapped under the weight of their success, and they have to keep just making the same game over and over again. And I guess that's just the nature of the business, but it's still sad. Reason number 3, layoffs and acquisitions. We've seen a lot of studios gobbled up by the bigger companies, the Microsofts and the EAs of the world over the last decade or so. The independent studio is kind of a rarity, at least when you're making, double and AAA games. But it's just not the big fish eating the smaller ones up. It's also giant investment firms, massive, massive entities, whether they're publicly traded or they are a private equity firm or some kind of prince in the Middle East. These are investors that have no cares about gaming. Whenever pure investment dollars start running the show in gaming, you get what we see today, at least in the AAA space, because they don't care about games. They don't care about the art of gaming. They don't care about your enjoyment. They don't care about the quality of the product. They just care that number go up. They just want to make money. And that is part of being a business, but it's not the only thing that a business is there for. And as a result of that, we've seen what? Tons and tons of layoffs, studio shutdowns and closures, game cancellations. They spend all this money, gobble these companies up, and then spit them out. And they're just done. They're spent. They're gone. They might buy up some classic franchise, put out one game, then fire the staff and never make another, and we never hear from it again. Because these people aren't there to be stewards of gaming as a thing. No, they just want to make money. That's it. And when that's the only motive driving, the only motive, then, it's not going to change anytime soon. And now, obviously, indies and AA will save the day, but they need money too. And so, where are they getting their money from? Maybe you can get a loan, maybe you're independently wealthy or what have you, but it takes time, lots of time, and thus lots of money to make these games. And so you need investment dollars. You need somebody that's footing the bill to get these games made, but they need to not be just in it for the money. Reason number 4, the implosion of console gaming. Game consoles, the traditional way that games were played for most of history of gaming, they're not dead yet. They're still here. We still have them. But how much longer are they going to be around? Xbox is pretty much done. I mean, Microsoft has said that they are not canceling the next Xbox. They're still putting out the next generation Xbox, but we don't know what it looks like, if it's going to be an actual console or if it's going to be a console-like PC like the Steam Deck. A lot of rumors are pointing in that direction, so you could say that if that's what they do, then the console's already dead. They've stopped producing them, it's reported, and they're being pulled off the shelf from Sam's Club and Costco and different places. It doesn't seem like Microsoft is serious about console gaming anymore. It seems like they just want to take the Xbox brand and shove it into the PC because Windows has always been their bread and butter, and they just want to focus on that now and not have to worry so much about what's going on in gaming. But that's going to fail them too if they don't, because there's going to be movement elsewhere. Windows just plays catch up. That's not going to be good for them. And so, yeah, it's not looking so good for the future of Microsoft as a gaming company, even though they've bought up all these companies. In terms of being a platform, I don't think they've got a very bright future as things are looking right now. And if it goes 100% PC, how are they going to really make that much money off of games that they didn't put out themselves, right? Because they no longer own the storefront. Steam is the storefront of PC gaming. You may have to buy a copy of Windows to play a lot of those games currently, but Steam machines are looking like they might make a comeback in the near future, and Linux and SteamOS might actually give Microsoft a run for their money now that gaming is getting to a good state there. PlayStation is obviously doing really well for itself, but even they have plateaued in terms of the market. They are not expanding. They are selling about the same rate with PS5 they did with PS4. They're not selling as many PS5 Pros as they did PS4 Pros. They're not doing bad, but they're not doing exactly good either. At least not if you are a business with the growth mindset, which usually that's how these places think. And so the big gamble for Sony is about to be getting back into the handheld market, if the rumors are true, of course. But I think they are. It seems like the thing that makes sense because even though they are the king here in America and Europe and other parts of the world, in Japan, that's not true. Nintendo's the top dog. Switch sold way, way, way more than the PS4 when it comes to Japan, the home country of both of these companies. And they care about that. So I think Sony is getting back into the handheld market directly because they need to compete with Nintendo now, especially if Microsoft's out of the game. They've got to compete directly. Nintendo said they didn't want to compete with them anymore. They wanted to do their own thing, but if there's only two companies making consoles, then you compete. As ridiculous as the idea was to begin with. And so now let's talk about the Switch 2. It's sold well so far, but I don't think that's going to last. I think it might have already peaked, or at least for the next couple years. They're going to have a very, very, very special game come out, exclusive to the Switch 2, to get anybody excited about it again. You know, some people love Mario Kart World, some people hate it. And then a lot of people love Donkey Kong Bonanza. But those are currently the only exclusive titles for the system for the most part, at least from Nintendo. And I'm not talking about like the little trial thing that should have been free, the $10 thing. What's that called? Anyway, it's dumb. And so I don't count that. I'm afraid for Nintendo that everybody that wanted a Switch 2 just for the visual boost, for the most part, might have already got it. Or at least after this Christmas, they might have already gotten it, you know? So when it comes to 2026, 2027, unless they've got something that really, really gets people excited, I think there's more people mad at Nintendo right now than they are, you know, looking forward to the future there. Your hardcore Nintendo people, they're going to go with whatever they're given. But for most gamers that want to explore outside of Nintendo's ecosystem, they are going to be probably less enticed to buy a new one until there's some kind of game that they've got to have, that they got to have that new hardware for. I don't think it's going to be another Wii U situation. It's going to do fine, but I don't think it's going to sell anywhere nearly as many as the first Switch over the entire course of its life. Because it was pretty much the only handheld in town, 8 years ago. But now you've got Steam Deck and all the PC handhelds kind of nipping at their heels. Not a huge chunk of the market yet, but they are steadily coming for them. You've got Sony potentially releasing some kind of PS5 or PS6 handheld edition, whatever that ends up being. There was rumors about Microsoft releasing a handheld. That might still happen, or it might just be the Ally X thing that we got recently that's not really an Xbox. It's just an Xbox branded PC. Doesn't even have a special OS, I don't think. Maybe it does. I don't know. I haven't looked at it that closely because it's not really interesting to me. And when we look back at console sales over the decades, we kind of peaked about 20 years ago. Nobody can get over 30 million consoles sold. PS2, DS, and the Switch 1, they've all kind of been up in that realm, that over 100 million. But why isn't it 200 million? Why isn't it 500 million? There are 8 billion people on this planet. 8. So 130 million? Or maybe, we add them all together and we get like 200, 300 million. That's still an insignificant, less than 1,000% of all the humans on Earth, right? Why is console gaming not growing? That's going to be the topic for another video, maybe. But PC, that's another weird one. It is growing. It's steadily growing, but not at a stable rate, I don't think. Especially with the way that the pricing is going for GPUs and other parts these days. A lot of the PC gamers out there, they're not running the 5090. They don't have, 64 gigs of RAM. They don't have M2 drive hard drives even. A lot of people are rocking 7-year-old laptops that they paid like $800 for back then, and they're just barely squeaking along. That it's weird, the whole PC gaming thing, because when you look at the Steam charts on what hardware people actually have, it's almost always lower end than the consoles. or at least the current gen consoles, like it's not even up to par with the PS5. So it's not exactly like people are having great gaming experiences there. Now, I'm not a PC gamer, as I've said before. I kind of gave up on that years ago. I keep an eye on it because it's interesting, but I don't really participate. So I might be getting a little bit wrong there. But when I look at the data, when I talk to my friends, it seems like a handful of PC gamers are having these great, amazing experiences. And then a lot of people are having very mediocre experiences, unfortunately. And that isn't great for the longevity of the industry. People that have poor experiences are going to be less likely to come back, you know. The console, one of the benefits of consoles was that they offer a lot of control over the experience. And if they just die on us and we go completely PC gaming, then I don't think that would be a good thing for gaming as a whole. And so with that, let's jump to reason number 5. Touchscreen gaming and Gen Alpha. The mobile market is dwarfing PC and console combined these days. It is just growing massively, bigger and bigger and bigger every day because everybody's got a phone. Not everybody's got a console. Not everybody has a laptop. Not everybody has a PC that can play more than Minesweeper, you know? But everybody's got a phone, and they keep upgrading them and getting newer ones, and they're getting faster. And now, you know, your average phone is a pretty decent little gaming machine now. In fact, the new iPhone, I think, can do ray tracing. So that's, even ray tracing is going to come to your phone if it hasn't already. And yeah, that world is so different than traditional gaming. A lot of the games there are kind of just shovelware, or they're so simple that it's like, can we even put these in the same category as a Final Fantasy game or a Death Stranding? You know, this is a simple solitaire game I have on my phone really the same? It's technically a video game, but it's also a simulation of a card game that's existed for hundreds of years. And so the thing I think is, to me, the biggest issue with mobile gaming is the interface itself. Touchscreens are very poor, in my opinion, for gaming. Now, certain games, like an RTS style game, certain games work, but anything where you would traditionally make a character run and jump, or you want to move and operate your camera angle at the same time while also being able to fire off your gun, like, any of those experiences are terrible when it comes to touchscreen interfaces. The virtual D-pads, your finger slips past the zone and suddenly it's not working. There's no tangible button that you can feel around for when you're switching between the A and the B button. It's terrible. It's not a good experience. But for Gen Alphas, it's the only experience they know, at least for over 90% of them. Seriously, over 90% of these kids say they have never touched a game controller in their life. And that's not just game controllers, that's also talking about playing with mouse and keyboard. These kids only know touch gaming. And that is really, really going to give us some big issues in terms of what is possible in the future if that's the only thing people want to play. You can argue with me about this if you want, but you're not playing Street Fighter or Tekken on a touch screen. You're not going to have, you know, the best first-person shooter experience on a touchscreen. It's just not possible with that medium. The touch interface is too limited for those kind of games. And if we've got a whole generation of gamers that never have touched a controller, that don't know any better, maybe they play those games and like, this is great. This is all I know. You know, good for them. But not good for them because it's a lesser experience. And if we want gaming as an industry, as a community, as all these things to thrive, we need everybody to have good experiences that keep bringing them back, to make them want to get into more games, to buy new systems and all the things that are required for this industry, this ecosystem to function. But it's not just the interface, it's also the kind of games that are available in these ecosystems. You just see a bunch of shovelware, a bunch of junk, I mean, if you were on TikTok or any of those kind of services and you see the ads for the dumb little games that pop up with the most annoying ads possible, designed to frustrate you into wanting to play the game in some kind of absurd twist of psychology, but there's just a bunch of crap out there. And there's a lot of good stuff too, but there's just thousands upon thousands of games, and there is no really game industry for mobile in terms of promotion and discussion the way there is for traditional gaming. You know, when a new phone game comes out, you don't see a article in IGN or a video from Digital Foundry about those. There is not an equivalent that I've seen. I'm sure there's some small channels that are trying, but there's not really an established, reliable source to go to see what is good in mobile gaming, right? So how are these kids going to find anything outside of the recommendation engines and all the crap that comes with the Play Store and the Apple Store? But these things are also just loaded down with ads and lots of dark patterns and things, but especially microtransactions. They're everywhere. Some of these things have subscriptions plus microtransactions. You know, you want to buy a skin, get a power-up that gives you a pay-to-win, get extra heart, and then also you need this monthly pass. Like, they just stack it up in these games. And the amount of junk, the amount of copycat games, or rip-off games, a lot of junk out there is like SpongeBob or Mickey Mouse, you know, just kind of tweaked a little bit to be knockoffs and stuff. I mean, we see it in the console space too occasionally, but those usually get called out because it's just prevalent and expected in the mobile world. And if that's all these kids have ever known, they just accept that that's how gaming is, I don't see their thirst for gaming really growing to full capacity. So if any of you are parents or aunts and uncles, get some controllers in these kids' hands. Let them experience what true gaming is like. Mobile is fine. Mobile is fine. But we can't have that be the only option, or else gaming is just not going to be anything resembling what it is today. Alright, since I've already stepped into it, let's go ahead and jump to topic number 6, shovelware and free-to-play games. So in case you're not aware of what shovelware means, it's jargon for a low-effort game, something that was barely even put any effort into. And unfortunately, now thanks to AI, we're going to see so much more of that. You know, there's this term slop going around, and I don't think the AI is quite at the level where you can completely slop a full game. Not anything that's going to run well. But yeah, the AI stuff and the mobile markets, the way they're set up, there's just a lot of junk out there. A lot of stuff that's just not good. And it's only going to get worse. And like I mentioned earlier, you get copycat games. You know, somebody has a little bit of success, you got a Flappy Bird pops up, and then suddenly there's like 700 Flappy Bird clones. And like I was just saying, you know, a lot of these games are free to play. You get bombarded with ads. Maybe they let you pay for the option to turn ads off. Some games don't even give you that option. Some games you pay for it and then they still try to show you ads by like dark patterns and things that are optional ads. But yeah, I think we all know the situation. It's not great there. And there's a lot of bad habits, a lot of bad patterns that have been normalized that's going to take a lot of effort to undo. And so we can look back at the history of the Wii and see just exactly how this plays out. When the Wii came out, it was a huge success. They sold tons and tons of them. People's grandmas were saying like, hey, I want one. They did what Nintendo set out to do with that system. But unfortunately, most people didn't buy more than one game. Most people got Wii Sports, and that was all they wanted. They didn't care about anything else. Maybe they bought one game. Maybe they got a Mario game or a Zelda game. But a lot of people just didn't buy software that generation. And even when it came to more mainstream core gamers like myself, we weren't buying games for the Wii that were available on other systems. That pattern that's standard now, if you buy all your third-party games on a different console and you buy your Nintendo games on the Nintendo console, that was established with the Wii when Nintendo decided to stop competing for cutting-edge hardware. But I'm digressing. The software was the problem, because after that console had been out for 3-4 years, you could go into a store, look at the shelf, and outside of the handful of Nintendo first-party titles and a couple of third-party titles that were decent, there was so much junk, especially with the way that the Wiimotes introduced the novelty of motion controls and things. Like, a lot of little fly-by-night studios came out of the woodwork and made these, like, I don't know, carnival game and thing. Maybe I'll find an example to put up on the screen. I can't even remember the name of any of them, but there was a bunch of them, like a lot. And I kind of see that as the origin point of what we're dealing with now in so many places, whether it's eShops, well, mainly just eShops. But yeah, it's not great. And if we want Nintendo and the rest of gaming to do well, that's not going to work. But yeah, Nintendo's got over 16,000 games in their eShop, and that's just from the Switch 1 generation. That's from one console generation. When we get to the Switch 3 or the Switch 4, assuming that those even exist, but let's say for the moment that they do, you get to that point in the future when the Gen Alpha kids are the parents and they're having Gen Gamma, I guess, whatever we're going to call that. Will gaming survive under these conditions? Because when there's that much junk, a lot of people, they're not going to put in the effort, and when they can't find anything to play, they're just going to not play anything. And that's going to bring us to our final reason that gaming is in trouble: management and investors. When people complain about game studios, about these companies, when they say, oh, the developer doesn't care about X, the developer didn't do Y, why didn't they optimize it? Why didn't they spend more time on it? The developers, the actual programmers and artists and people that make the game, none of them wanted that. The people that are making these terrible decisions are above them. It's the managers, it's the executives, it's the investors above those people. These people that, like I was talking about earlier, maybe don't care as much about gaming as the people that are in the trenches making the games. They make these dumb decisions. And because we are currently in a capitalist system, the investors and the people that represent the investors, they get to call the shots, unfortunately. And so the actual developers, they kind of just have to do what they're told for the most part, unless we're talking about, small studios, indie studios, small teams, with small budgets. Because even if you are an indie studio, let's say you've got 2 people making a game, if you bring in a third person and they give you a big wad of money to make that game, well, now they're calling the shots, or at least a good chunk of them. And so this is how it always was, right? Why wasn't this a problem 30 years ago? Why is this a problem now? Well, it's my belief, and this isn't just gaming, this is music, this is movies and TV, this is across the board. At some point in time, there was an expectation that if you worked in an industry, you gave a shit about it, at least half a shit, right? If you were the CEO of a movie studio, you didn't want to have terrible B-grade movies coming out and have your name associated with that. You wanted good movies that people respected. And at some point that changed. Now, I'm using movies as an example because we've seen this pattern first there and now it's happening again in gaming. I think it's kind of one and the same, so I use them interchangeably here. But yeah, we got to some point where the people that cared, let's talk about Microsoft, for example. Perfect example. Phil Spencer is a businessman. He's an executive. He's probably a millionaire even. He's probably got tons and tons of money. But he does care about games. I believe him when he talks, that he actually gives a shit about gaming. But he's not in charge anymore. Satya Nadella's in charge, the CEO of Microsoft. Because Xbox was allowed to operate as an independent-ish entity, even though they were within Microsoft, they got to like kind of run their own little show there. And they got reeled back into the corporate mothership. And now Microsoft is the one calling the shots. There is no more Xbox. Not really in more than name at this point, to be honest. They should just call it Microsoft Gaming and get it over with. Oh, right. But that failed terribly the last time they tried that because Microsoft does not have nearly as good a reputation as Xbox. And so the CEOs of today, they don't care that you like their movie, that you enjoyed their game, that your copy of Windows remained virus-free. They only care about those things as much as they need to get you to give them the dollars. There is no sense of pride or sense of self-attachment, really, to these things from the modern executive. And so they're going to make cold, callous decisions that aren't going to make any sense to those of us that do care. But let's jump over to Sony, right? They had gobs of studios that could have been making games that they were good at, that they wanted to make. Yeah, Sony messed up. Made them make a bunch of service games and free-to-play and just all these models chasing what was successful with mobile and Fortnite and a handful of other games, but as they learned the hard way, there's not enough space for everybody to do that. There's only one World of Warcraft. Until that game dies, for 20 years running, that's the MMO of RPGs, and anything else is crumbs at the table. That's just how these live service games go. Fortnite is the top banana when it comes to first-person shooters. There are others out there, but they're not going to be toppled anytime soon, I don't think. And, even if you put $300 million into a game, there's no guarantee you're going to do that. I've seen so many companies come into these little tiny markets and fail for like 25 years now. I remember before WoW came out, nobody could topple EverQuest. And then all the RPGs, all the MMO RPGs that came out of that day, they would all inevitably fail a few months, a year or two later, because people would go back to EverQuest. People go back to WoW now. And in gaming, people go back to Call of Duty, or they go back to Fortnite, whatever their flavor of things is. And that's what a lot of people just play, is these games over and over again. Hell, I play some of these games myself quite a bit. But some people only play these games, and you can't force yourself to be the new market leader there, as Sony learned the hard way. And now, once again, did these studios want to make these games that are now canceled? No, of course they didn't. They were forced to by management and investors. So when you're down in the comments section getting all spicy about something, remember who to throw your anger at specifically. And now, if these companies fail enough times, if they experience enough pain, well, this kind of thinking will die out. The kind of CEOs that make these decisions that turn out so poorly, they'll get fired, and they'll bring in new ones until they eventually bring in somebody that does care and starts getting things right again. But, they might have to stumble and fall on their face a few times to actually be humble enough to go back down that route. And so with that, let's end the reason that things are doomed and everything's bad. Let's go into positive things. Gaming's not dying. It's not going away tomorrow. It's not going away anytime soon. But gaming as we know it could. And that's really what we've been talking about here. Gaming as we know it, as the traditional gaming setup has been for the last, 50 years? Is it 50 years now? I guess the first game consoles came out in the 70s. So yeah, we got like 50 years of gaming to look back at now. And we're going to have 50 more. If all the consoles fail and just completely die out, well, people will still have PCs that they can game on. And hopefully enough people are still playing that, we can still get controllers for those of us that prefer that over the mouse and keyboard. But there will always be some type of device that a game can be played on, whether that's your phone or your computer or a dedicated gaming device like I am worrying about today. And even though I've been talking a lot about failures and things not going well, overall, if you look at the industry as a total, things are doing great in terms of money, in terms of what the investors and people are looking at the top. All those numbers just keep going up, up, up. But they're also kind of stalling. They're not going up as fast as they used to. And with the current economy, a lot of people are struggling right now. They don't necessarily have extra money to spend on gaming. It's no wonder that free-to-play games are more popular than ever right now, because maybe that's all you can afford is that free-to-play. And so I think, things are going to be troubled for a while until people have more money in their pockets that they can spend on things like games. Until we're all doing a little bit better, the game industry is going to hurt along with us, for sure. But I think at some point we are going to bounce back, and then hopefully the gaming industry bounces back with us because they give us things that are worthwhile to spend our money on. But for now, we've got leaks of PS6 and a PS5/6, we don't know, some kind of handheld. I'm guessing PS6 handheld at this point. But yeah, 2 new consoles from Sony, at least one special custom chip system of some sort coming from Microsoft. Nintendo just released the Switch 2 this year, so we're not getting anything new from them for a while. But, consoles are here. There's going to be a new generation of GPUs within the next year, I'm sure. At least by the end of next year, we'll probably see RDNA 5 and, what comes after Maxwell? The 6000 series GeForce stuff. So yeah, gaming's going to keep on going. Gaming is doing okay right now. We're doing fine right now, but we're not doing great. And that's where we should be trying to get ourselves back into. And we can. But, it's going to take all of these issues I've talked about today being dealt with. Because if you fix 6 out of 7 and leave one of them as it is, then that's just going to pull it down by itself. But once again, a lot of this peril for the industry really lies in the big companies, in your EAs, your Ubisofts, Nintendo, Microsoft, what have you. Indies are going to be around, and hopefully, small studios, single A, double A, small studios will also be around. But yeah, the AAA space, even if it does go away, we'll still have games. They just might not be to the scale that they are sometimes because they don't have the budget for it. But games aren't going to go anywhere. Even if the industry was to completely evaporate and there was $0, somebody's going to make a game just because they like games and they want to play a game themselves. So gaming's never going to die, but it is in an unhealthy state right now. And hopefully the world economic situation gets better in the next couple years, and just, we can start working on fixing these things, because I think if you've stayed around for the video this long, you probably care about gaming a lot, just like I do. And we want this to stick around for generations to come. This is culture. This is art. This is part of humanity. It's wires and electricity and binary and all these, unhuman things. But it is the effort of humans that made these things, at least up until recently. And it's human expression. Gaming needs to be preserved. It needs to continue to exist. Yeah, I think I'll leave it there, and I'll just say thanks for watching. I hope this video is less than half an hour. We'll see how it turns out after I edit it. This is a video I've been thinking about making for a while now, or really, I kind of had 4 or 5 different video ideas originally and decided to just kind of condense them all down into this one video. I know that may not be the best idea in terms of the algorithm and playing the game of YouTube, but yeah, hopefully this isn't like an hour-long video you just finished. But yeah, it's been over a month since my last video came out. Been pretty distracted by the news and the real world. outside of video games. Video games is kind of my place to come to for comfort and to escape all of that now. But yeah, I will try to get videos out a little bit sooner next time. But yeah, YouTube continues to amaze me how much time and effort it takes after being a viewer for so many years, being on the other side. Oh, you gotta have not just time and all these other things about you, but the energy for it, and just the right headspace and all these things. Took me hours to get even started recording today. But anyway, I've rambled on enough. Thanks for watching the video. Thanks for sticking around this long. I doubt even 1% of you did, but if you're still here, thanks. Please like and subscribe and do all those things, and I'll see you next time.